really admitted my truth, but they know how I think that I have the time.
And I also want to thank you all for coming out this evening. This event is to honor Black History Month, and Black History Month began in 1926, and it was started by a Black historian, a Black American historian, and he called it Negro History Week, and then it expanded to a month. And his name was Carter Woodson, and he had, as a historian, he noted that African American contributions were overlooked, ignored, even suppressed by the writers of history textbooks and the teachers who used them. He concluded that racism, as he says, is merely the logical result of that tradition, the inevitable outcome of a thorough instruction to the effect that the Negro has never contributed anything to the progress of mankind. And so by celebrating Black History Month, he hoped that we would be able to that would help to rectify that situation. And in a sense, so are we tonight. We're honoring Black History Month on a territory, on a piece of land that was owned by the Stark family. And the Stark family were early Black settlers in this area. And Sylvia and Louis Stark started off together in California. And in 1858, the California government passed a law that said that blacks had to be registered, they had to have a license to work, and they had to wear a badge that said they were Negro. And at the same time, Sir James Douglas was trying to encourage blacks to come to this area. He himself, some of you may already know this, but he was he was of African heritage himself. And so the Starks eventually joined in the migration. About 800 people came to this area. They arrived in 1860 and lived on Salt Spring, and then moved here in 1875. And they lived here until 1895, when Louis Stark was murdered. And people think that he was murdered by white men who wanted his property in order to mine for coal here. And so Sylvia Stark at that time went back to Salt Spring, lived with her son, Willis, and lived to be 106. And then Emma Stark, her daughter, some of you may have seen there's a plaque on Wesley Street, because that's where her home was. She became a teacher and taught in the first school. She was the first teacher in Cedar. So it's a fairly unique bit of history. And so that's a bit, perhaps the beginning. And as we hear some more stories tonight, we too will be, I hope, honoring Black History Month. And so I'd like to start by doing exactly that. And the first person is George Anderson, who's hiding and cowering, you might say, behind the bookcase. George was born in Nanaimo. He went to John Barsby, and he's now at VIU studying for a Bachelor of Science in Biology. It sounds like I feel like this is a game show or something that I'm doing. Anyway, he is going to be a lawyer or a doctor, and he plays, let me see, the tuba, the trumpet, the tenor and alto sax, and the piano. He was the Save-On Foods one of the amazing kids, and he was Junior Citizen of the Year, and I think he's definitely a keeper. So please come.
I brought a little note just to remind me of what to say, so. And thank you, Terry, for allowing me to come and speak today. It was really a last moment thing. I tried to back out yesterday, but she didn't let me do it, so. So I'll start with a quote by Martin Luther King. in the end, we remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. So, my family came to Nanaimo in about 1980 something, 1989. My dad went to school at Cambridge and was an accountant, and also got a degree in accounting and English from Cambridge University. And they lived in the UK for about 10 years before they came to Canada. And when my dad got here, he went to Malaspina University, and they said that before he could actually become an accountant here, he would have to go to Malaspina University. Or sorry, it wasn't even a university at that time, it was only a college at that time. So he said, "You want me to go to a college?" when I went to one of the best universities in the world. And they said yes, so he decided not to do that, and I wonder why, but instead of going to the best college in Vancouver Island. But he decided to stop, and he went and found a new career. He's now an editor and machine operator at the Daily News. So that's what he's doing, and my mom does the exact same thing, but she works for the opposing company in Ladysmith. So there's always battering between the both of them. So going to school in Nanaimo was very interesting, because when I was born, I thought that I came into a family and you didn't have like grandparents or anything like that, which is really strange now that I think about it now. So I went to elementary school, and people would talk about how they were going to their cousin's house and things like that. I'm like, what are they talking about? I only have my brothers and my sisters. And then probably it was around grade 2 that I eventually learned that I was a little different from everyone, and I was the only one in my school. So it was a little difficult going throughout elementary school, but eventually I found a good group of friends, and they accepted me as one of their own. And I went into high school. My brother was there before I was. I have an older brother and 2 older sisters. I'm the youngest of the family. And my brother, when he went there, I always use a metaphor as in, it was a huge clearing with a whole bunch of trees, and my brother went in there and he chopped down all the trees. My sister went in next and she dug up the stumps, and then I went in there and made a road. So it was an interesting experience, because when I went there, it already seemed like I almost belonged there. So it was definitely an interesting experience. By the time I left my school, people had said that John Barsby Secondary School, that I had owned it, but I don't think I owned it, because I'm not that big-headed. But so I went in there, and when I went in there, there was a very different environment than elementary school is, obviously. But when you did go there, it was that people expected you to be, oh, because you're black, you should have like pick in your hair and a do-rag and wear baggy clothes and things like that, and have, like Terry said, a boom box on your shoulder. And so when I went there, I decided that I wasn't going to be like that. Well, I wasn't like that. I came from a pretty strict family anyway, so